Sure. So Sego Seguego, Kimberly Murray, Yungatskanyega Haga Neganasatage. My name's Kimberly Murray, and I'm the Special Interlocutor for Unmarked Grapes.
This was the first event of its kind, and it was quite emotionally charged.
Yep.
I mean, what was this experience like for you, and what did you take away from it?
Well, I mean, I think most importantly, I want to make sure it was an experience for survivors and community members that was helpful. So I don't really want to focus on how the experience was for me. There's definitely some lessons that we've learned on how to improve how we hold our gatherings. And this was, as you said, the first gathering of its kind to discuss the issue of missing children in unmarked burials. And so we'll continue to improve and create the space for full, deeper conversations that I think communities and survivors really want to continue having.
We heard references during one of the reports about the provinces that are here and those that aren't here. Could you expand on what provinces we didn't see representation from, and how do you hope to engage with these provinces going forward?
Yeah, so just to clarify on that, all the provinces and territories weren't invited to attend. The focus was to bring communities that are currently receiving funding and started the work of recovery to meet together. A number of provincial representatives and federal government representatives were asked to speak on panels about the work that they do in their capacity, such as the chief coroner or someone with the police service. But there was not a request out to all provinces and territories to come and attend. So I don't want you to misinterpret that comment. My mandate does say that I'm to work with the provincial territorial governments, and I am hoping to meet with all the ministers of justice at their gathering that they meet, federal, provincial, territorial meeting in October, which is being held in Nova Scotia. So I will be addressing all the ministers of justice at that meeting.
Global News, Sarah Comadina. When you were listening to people speak, like this is going to also go into the summary eventually. Is there anything that kept coming up or any main points that you can reflect on right now that may, moving forward, be in your decision?
I think there were a number of main themes that have come out from this gathering, and you may have heard some of them in our closing comments. There continues to be barriers in relation to access to records, and that's a big concern, not just with the federal government or the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, but with provincial governments, municipal governments, and other entities such as universities that hold records. And so I would encourage all those institutions to actually look in their archives and do the work so that, and not sit back waiting for communities to say, can we get in there and look? Because we know that some of these institutions have records. They may not even know they have records. And so that's one big theme that we heard over the last couple of days. Supports for communities for grieving and community well-being is another. This is a unique type of healing that needs to happen, and communities need time, and they need the supports from the Government of Canada to help them put in the proper programs and cultural and language revitalization to help with healing. The TRC wrote extensively on the need for healing and what's required, and it's time that we fulfill those calls to action.
This was the first one. The first one is always fantastic for laying groundwork and benchmarks. What do you hope to take from this to the next ones going forward, and how do you advance this?
Yeah, thanks for that question. As you said, this was the first one. It was really focused on hearing from communities about what their barriers and needs are. As we move forward with the other gatherings, we're going to focus in on specific concerns that communities have raised at this gathering. So when I talk about the problem of records and access to records, we're going to be hosting a gathering on Indigenous data sovereignty and how do we make sure that Indigenous communities have ownership, control, and possession over these records that are about them and about their children, and why are they sitting in colonial institutions, and where First Nations people have to come and say, please let me have access to these records. And we'll continue as we go over our 2-year mandate to hold gatherings to talk about different topics and concerns that will inform the legal framework that I've been tasked to make recommendations on. But importantly, we're also holding gatherings to hear voices of survivors that weren't able to come to this gathering. Very important that we host a gathering in the far north. We are looking at the Eastern Arctic and where we can host a gathering there. Very important that we go to Quebec and hear from Quebec survivors. We had very few people here from Quebec. And from the Atlantic region, we have survivors that went to Shubenacadie. So we want to make sure that voices of survivors are heard, and that it's not just gatherings with technicians and experts and academics, but we need them too to help guide the work.
Ganassi O'Dear with CBC Indigenous. Nice to meet you. We heard a lot today about how participants they felt like there wasn't enough time for meaningful dialogue and questions, and you only have a 2-year mandate. Do you feel like that's enough time?
It's never enough time, right? And I have said to survivors that I have 2 years. I'm going to do what I can in the 2 years. People also have to understand that I'm not just holding gatherings. I'm going to communities and I'm going to gatherings. Many communities have already held gatherings that I've been to. Leadership, provincial territorial organizations, survivor groups have all been inviting me over the last 3 months. So I've been hearing from survivors locally. I do appreciate it's very difficult in these formats for people to ask questions and everyone to be heard, especially when you have, the room only until 5 p.m. or dinner's coming in. And so we really will take this back as a team to figure out how we can, make more space for exchange of information between survivors at our next gathering. And I'm grateful for the support that the National Advisory Council and the Survivor Circle will be providing in organizing our next gathering in November in Winnipeg.
Thank you. I did want to ask too, because it was emotionally charged these past 2 days. A lot of feelings came up and it was hard to talk about. We even saw that on stage today as well. Even though it is difficult conversations, how important is it for survivors, academics, for people who have lived through this to talk about it? How important is that for you and your work?
I think it's very important. The commissioners of the TRC always talked about moving people from their head to their heart, and over the last 2 days, we've now been talking about moving from our head to our heart to our hands and taking action. It's really important for Canadians and academics, as you say, and the technicians that are helping to really understand how deep the trauma is and how important this is. We heard over the last couple of days, these are children. These were our future leaders in our communities. These aren't just, remains that are buried somewhere. And so it's really important to nourish those spirits. We, every day, We started the gathering with ceremony, with sacred fire, pipe ceremonies, and we held those every day. And people came and offered their medicines to the sacred fire and smoked the pipe with us to pray for everyone that was here, for the children and for the survivors that were here, and the non-survivors that are walking and supporting the work of recovery.
It's open? Okay. Bassi Roba for Radio Canada French Desk. Est-ce que je peux aller en français?
You could try.
Donc je vais aller en français. S'il y a des problèmes, on peut le faire en anglais, c'est pas un problème.
Je parle français très bien. So.
Mais ok. Ce que je voulais savoir, c'est que vous avez été nommé en juin. Donc depuis juin, est-ce que vous avez eu le temps de voir la tâche qui vous attend?
I need someone to translate for me.
Yeah, I can translate. I say that
Sorry.
you started
The translators left, I think.
you started your job in June.
Yes.
Did you have time to see what's waiting for you? Because the work, which is the work waiting for you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
I say you start your job on June, I think.
Yes.
Do you have time to see what's waiting for you? Because you have many jobs waiting for you. Do you have the time to analyze what's waiting for you?
What's waiting for me?
Yeah.
Oh, so although I started the mandate in June, I was deeply involved in the issue of looking for missing children in unmarked barrels when I worked for 5 years with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So I knew what was waiting for me when I was asked to take on this job. The calls to action in the TRC said we just started the work, and so much work still needs to be done. So I'm quite aware of the enormity of the task. And to add to it, I mean, we heard from Canada talking about the 140 residential school sites. My mandate includes other sites. So we have the Indian hospitals and the reformatories and provincial hospitals and the sanatorium. So that's what awaits us. And I have been talking to communities that are doing work on those sites as well and planning for doing work on those sites. So as you say, there's a lot awaiting ahead of us. But we're only one piece. There's all these other entities that have been created that are doing some work that are to complement the work that I'm asked to do. My work is very specific to making recommendations for a new legal framework. And so that's what I have to be careful to focus on that and let my colleagues that are on the expert panels that are doing toolkits for communities, let them do their work and stay in my lane. But it's really important that we all work together.
Thank you.
Thank you.